Welcome to the Four Visions Market podcast, a space built on the principles of integrity and reciprocity. Together, we will engage in thought-provoking conversations about plant medicines, why these plants are coming out of the rainforests, jungles, and mountains after thousands of years, and what it means to be in right relationship with the ancestral wisdom cultures and guardians of these traditions. I'm your host, Mariah Ganessa, founder and director of Four Visions Market. This podcast is the natural evolution in our commitment to providing you, our tribe, with incredible resources to support you on your healing journey through plant medicines. Welcome home. Season's greetings, beloved tribe family. We're back with a super special episode this week with an incredible woman and friend of mine, Lindsey Wise. Following the birth of her first child, my friend Lindsey nearly bled to death. During this near-death experience, she found herself surrounded by multitudes of light beings who initiated her into the world of subtle energies and healing vibrations. At that moment, she realized that all beings create their own unique vibration, their soul song. Each person's soul song makes up the great choir of life. Lindsey's work is to awaken humanity to the healing power of their unique sound. She has traveled the world, cultivating healing techniques to help people awaken to the power of their own voice and the healer within. She blends ritual, breathwork, guided journeys, sound healing, yoga, and community song, and calls it ceremonial energy medicine. In today's episode, we get into a beautiful and inspiring conversation about motherhood, parenting medicine children, and the path of the medicine mother. We discuss topics like how to support our children in understanding the path of ceremony, how to navigate behavioral issues and even health challenges in our little ones, and a lot of potent topics related to the great blessing and great gift of raising the next generation of conscious humans. I thoroughly enjoyed having this conversation, and I hope you do too. Thank you so much for tuning in.
A quick word from our sponsors before we begin this episode.
When working with powerful plant allies and teachers, we're given a new awareness and a deeper understanding of ourselves, the world around us, and the energies in our lives. One of the most challenging parts of working with plant medicine is integrating the experience. In ceremony, our plant teachers show us the path, but it is then our responsibility to take action in our daily lives. Mushroom microdosing has helped me tremendously in this process, allowing me to keep messages and insights from ceremony in the forefront of my awareness. This is key in the integration process because it helps us to bring the technology of the ancient wisdom we receive through ceremony into lasting, sustainable transformation and change. If you are looking for the right place to source high-quality, ethical, made-in-prayer mushroom microdoses, look no further. Four Visions Market is proud to endorse Connect Chocolate in their 30-day microdose protocol. Visit connectchocolate.life and use the code FVFamily for 10% off your first order. According to a journal published by the National Library of Medicine, individuals who microdose describe a wide variety of psychological benefits, including enhanced creativity, increased energy, improved social ability, sharper focus, stronger analytical thinking, more positive mood, improved memory, and increased mindfulness and general sense of well-being. Connect Chocolate was founded by a member of the Four Visions community, and their mission is to cultivate kinship with earth and spirit. This 30-day at-home treatment will take you on a journey to support your emotional, spiritual, and mental well-being. Go to connectchocolate.life or visit the link in our show notes. And remember to use the code FVFamily for 10% off your first order. Giving thanks for the gift of this moment and for the opportunity to drop into this beautiful space with a sister that I honor and admire a lot on this path, and want to give a beautiful, warm welcome to Lindsey. Thank you so much for being here with us today. I'm feeling really grateful and excited to get to connect with you in this way and receive you on our podcast. So welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for this warm welcome. It's an honor and a pleasure to get to be here with you. Thank you.
Well, this is a really beautiful moment to get to connect today and feeling really a lot of ripeness and potential with this conversation that we get the blessing to record together. Lindsey, can we begin with a short introduction to who you are, a little bit about your path and your walk, what brought you to the work that you do today on this earth for the world, and let us get to know you a little bit more.
Sure. Well, whenever I introduce myself or a title, I always say a mother, a mama. And that's an essence that I feel like I've always carried, is that energy of being a mama. And I'm honored to have 3 children and a husband that I've been married to for 18 years. And that family really comes first for me. I have grown up in a little town called Travelers Rest, South Carolina, which is great for a gypsy, a gypsy soul, that I got to rest. And then I really have traveled all around the world and been such a thankful student of this university of life. But I always really come back to being a mother as being like such a profound teaching for me. And it helps me to connect more with Pachamama and with our Mother Earth. And I've loved traveling around the world, learning from many different teachers, different ways of being. I grew up in a very strict religion, and I left home when I was 16, and I quit ballet and religion and just opened up more to a path of love and freedom of expression. And I never turned and looked back. And I've allowed dreams to really help to guide the path for me. And also, I began working with plant teachers when I was a very young teenager, and have been so thankful for our beloved plant allies that have come in and also helped to be stepping stones and guidance along this path. And now in this moment, I live in Grass Valley, California. And I am so thankful to be here on a sanctuary we call Earth and Sky. We recently got a beautiful place where we've been anchoring in our dreams and our prayers and our life here. So yeah, I think the last thing I'll share, because you'd asked about my work and what led me to it, is my mission is really helping to bring community and circle to sing and to pray and to feel connected to each other. Because as I mentioned, as a young girl leaving a path and feeling quite disconnected, I have had some beautiful initiations and experiences that have brought me into the knowing that that's a big part of why I am here. So I'm always creating circles and offerings for the community with so much gratitude.
Mm-hmm. Thank you so much for that beautiful introduction. And it's such a wonderful thing to get to see someone so embodied and doing what they came here to do with so much love and joy. And I really feel that from you. And it's been beautiful to witness you. Our paths have kind of been very parallel over the last few years. I've been able to, just watch from afar the way in which you tend to your communities and really show up in service and so much love and giving. And you have such a big heart, and you really feel that. And I hope that our listeners can feel that even just through your voice, because it's one of the most beautiful things that has always stuck with me every time I've had the blessing and privilege to connect with you.
Thank you so much. Yeah, I'm born on 12/12. It's the day of the
Mm-hmm.
voice. Sorry.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, so it's the day of the voice is the day that I was born on. So I think that's why I love working with voice. Sorry. What were
Mm-hmm.
you going to say, Ma?
No, it's beautiful. So let us begin. Let's dive into this beautiful conversation. And, I would love to start with this space of the medicine mother. You shared a little bit in your introduction how your path is very much informed by your role as a mother and by the pillar of your family, which is a guiding force for you behind everything that you do. And, for me, I find a lot of resonance with you as a mother, especially as a medicine mother. And I would love to open this conversation today from that theme of the path of the medicine mother and what it means to you and what you've learned from walking this path of the medicine mother. Because, you know, I think that there's so much to go into here, especially, motherhood in itself is such medicine. And I would love to get your, definition, your response, your reflections on what the path of the medicine mother has been for you over the last 15, 16 years. I can't quite remember how old your oldest one is. But as you have walked this beautiful path of tending to your family and tending to your spiritual path, whatever you feel to come through on that topic, I'm just so open to receive you.
Mm. So our daughter just turned 17, and one
17.
of the big initiations of motherhood was that in my birth with her, I'd worked with other plant medicines, and yet the midwife that we worked with was an ayahuasquera. And in my birth with Mirabelle, I actually hemorrhaged and I bled to death. And the midwife, needed to help to bring me back into my body. And I did need to go and get resuscitated. I had to get 5 units of blood and get electrically resuscitated to get brought back in. And when our midwife was talking to us and sharing about working with ayahuasca, working with plant medicines, I knew that I was going to be working with that medicine. And a really big reason why I stepped into it after that near-death experience was to get even more connected to the celestial realms and to get to visit some of those places that I had been to during my near-death experience and becoming a mother. And I also was not fully prepared. And yet it has been such a deep work to do the befriending of the shadow and the ways that the plant medicines are able to teach and show me the ways that I can show up and be even more fully present as a mother. So without even needing to ingest these teachers, they are giving me these messages and insights as a call to presence. And so, yeah, for these 17 years as a mother, as being able to work with being able to, it feels like have a foot in both realms. I've been so thankful for the gift of these teachers. And one of the comical notes on that and being very present is that I also have been guided to go and travel and to go and do healing work in different places. And so as a mother and being, wanting to be with my children all the time, I also am remembering a passage that was read at my husband and I's wedding that is a Khalil Gibran passage, and it's from his book, The Prophet. And it speaks of letting there be spaces in your togetherness. And I always thought that that was with my beloved, that I needed to have space. But then in my motherhood journey, I've also learned how healthy it is to have these moments of space apart and then to come back together. And our relationship has even more depth and connection and presence. And so I've been called to different parts of the world and I'm able to go. And part of that is having a beloved that can help to tend our children and help to take care of home. I've had a village, other people and family members and friends, aunties, uncles who are able to be there with our children so that if I do go, I always come back. And it's just like any ceremony or journey that we can always go and traverse the universe, and we always come back home to right where we are. So that's been a big lesson for me. And in the motherhood, I also have felt like our children have known who I am and my path on a deep soul level, and have been accepting of that unique way of life. And so the last thing that I'll share is I mentioned that experience of getting to have that near-death experience, and it's really shaped the way that I'm able to live in life, because I know that there is no death, that it's all this birth and this continual opening. And so that was one of the greatest gifts that I stepped into motherhood with, is being really washed clean of a fear of death and separation. It really opened up. And so that helps me so much with being a mother, because we naturally have these times where we want to hold on really tight and not let go to some of the natural progressions that can happen. And so I was gifted with that coming into motherhood by really being open to our children's freedom. So that's been a big part of motherhood for me, is allowing them, my children, to get to be who they were born and who they've come here to be.
I love that. Thank you so much. And what a powerful initiation into motherhood, and what an incredible blessing to be gifted from the very start, that reminder to value life and to not hold on too closely to the things that we love the most, but rather to trust and give faith to life itself to hold us through this experience, this human experience. So many beautiful elements there with what you just shared. And I'm feeling, really a lot of resonance with that element of spaciousness. And I would love to dive into it a little bit more, because there's a lot to unpack there. I think within the construct of the societal conditionings of motherhood, there's so much expectation that we are always there, that we are the constant. And I think, speaking for myself and just from my observations with the mothers in my life and who I've witnessed, there is almost this expectation that there's guilt, or there should be guilt, to take that space, or to choose to also tend to ourselves, or to tend to our spiritual paths, or to even have something beyond our children. And I think that's so deeply rooted in the recent generations. If we look to our mothers and our grandmothers, that's very common within our society. And so to have the courage to break free from that conditioning, and to allow ourselves to empower ourselves and to embody the fullest extent of our womanhood and the many facets that it holds is no small feat. It's something, and a part of the study that I have been undergoing, for the last few years, and really at the forefront of my own altar as I explore and have been initiated in this study of motherhood and what it means to balance both the medicine woman and the mother. So if you have anything to share, either on your own experience or any reflections that you've witnessed in other women and in your sisters and community of finding that balance, and what it means to, say thank you to that old story of the shame, of the guilt, of the expectations, but to also say that story's not mine, and that's not the story that I'm going to nurture for my life.
I can remember right now so clearly my husband's grandmother, when she was hearing that after I'd finished nursing. So our children are only 15 months apart. And so after I'd finished with the beautiful journey of breastfeeding and nursing for both of those children, I was going off on an adventure. I was going with a friend over to Europe. And she said very clearly, she said, mothers should be with their children. And she was telling me all the shoulds and why she felt like I needed to stay. And I spoke to my husband about it, and I was so thankful for his perspective, because he said, she's from a different time, a different era, and you have the gift of being able to be present with your children and get to go and follow your soul's calling. And it's going to be something that most grandmothers would never even dream of, or other people, because it's not a paradigm that has been illuminated for them. And so from my children's young age and feeling like I had that green light and permission, I've been able to rewrite that story and to take that shame and offer gratitude for the concern or the worry. But it's almost like, instead of someone sending a prayer and wishing you well, if they're sending worried energy, it's the last thing that's going to bless the journey. So you can take that and offer gratitude for the person, and also you don't have to take on that story. And one of the places that I knew I needed to go and travel to was to go to Nepal and to do a Vipassana. And my children were young, and I couldn't talk to them for 10 days. I believe they were around like 5 and 6. And my husband was like, it's okay, go for it. And yet a few days into this Vipassana, which I don't know if you've heard of this, but it's a very powerful meditation experience where you're silent for 10 days, and a gong wakes us up at 4 a.m. and we have 11 hours of meditation through the day. There's no dinner. And we just go really deep into an inward journey. And I knew that I was meant to go and have this experience. And so I went, and after a few days of the Vipassana, my mind was so clearly telling me I needed to leave. I should go and call my children. Or even in meditation, I was looking at the peak of this mountain, and I thought, I've come all the way here to the Himalayas. Why am I just sitting here? I need to go and climb a mountain if I've come all this way. And very clearly, I could hear the voice of God, Spirit, my highest self, telling me that actually the mountain that I needed to reach the peak of was my own soul, and to just sit down and be quiet and to listen, and that I was the mountain, and that being here and being in the journey was climbing that mountain. And so I followed through with that Vipassana, and it felt like a rebirth in myself. And with that, the knowing that if I tried to talk myself out of things that I had committed to, or that I had been divinely guided to follow through with, that I needed to really come back inward to the present moment and be there at the peak of my mountain. And so as a mama, that's really stuck with me when I have felt like, oh, I should listen to this person or that, or this way, all of these different ways. There's many people who will try to should on us and tell us what we should or shouldn't do. And what it really comes down to is getting very quiet and still and coming into connection with the mountain of our soul and who we are, and allowing that to be what is the guiding force. And so that was a really big learning for me. Another little snippet is before we moved to Bali, we were there for 8 years, and I had a dream about this, and I knew we were supposed to go. And my husband was the one that was like, I don't think I should quit my job. Our children are 2 and 3. We really, I think, should stay here and stay very comfortable. And it took me saying, no, I've had this dream. I know this is where we're going and what we're doing, and not letting anyone else's story get in the way of something that I knew was the best for our family. And we had so much growth and transformation in that experience that I never looked back. So I think that that's the biggest part, is if other mothers who are listening, and even if you're not a mother who is birthed and has a child, we're always birthing our life's purpose and why we're here. And so there's going to be strings that get pulled, and these ways that we might get kind of taken off track. And so a part of our mission, I believe, is to come back to where we're being guided, that we know is going to be the most expansive and beautiful way of being for ourselves, for our global families, and if we have children, for our children too.
Thank you so much, sister. That's so beautiful. And I really feel that. And it really is such a paradigm shift. It requires a complete surrendering over to the vision that's something that's so much greater than we could ever imagine if we were to look at, our childhoods or the lives of the women before us. And it's because there's been such a repetition of giving from this empty cup and not having that permission to fill our own cups and to dream up this new way, to envision this and choose this for yourself. Especially, you have a daughter, and like to really gift that to her and to pass that new way on to me. It is the greatest gift we could give to our children, to show them what it means to be empowered women and to love ourselves so completely that we can have it all, that we can nourish and tend to all the different parts and aspects of ourselves. And that really has been what has stuck with me through my own journey. I love that you brought up the Vipassana, because that is the ultimate, to not be able to have any contact with your children for 10 days. And I did do 2 Vipassanas before I became a mother. And it's kind of like very serendipitous that you're talking about it now, because I have felt the call to do another one since becoming a mother. And, I haven't felt quite ready for that. My son's a little bit younger than I think you had mentioned. Your kids were 5 and 6 when you did it. But it's this beautiful diving into the complete unknown and diving headfirst into doing something that you know in your heart that you need to do. And it is scary in some ways and requires this ultimate trust in life itself, and in this new way of trusting that us nourishing our relationship to source is the very best thing for our children. And I started leaving my son at home to go to ceremony when he was 4 months old. And at first, I also encountered like a lot of internal processes around it. And he was still breastfeeding at that time. And so it was this big choice for me, but I almost felt like it was a spiritual payment that I was making for not only for myself, but also for my relationship with my child. And every time I came back from ceremony, even if it was challenging or hard for him and for me to say goodbye and to be apart for those 12 hours, when I came back, it was like the medicine that I had received flowed through him, and it did, through my breast milk and through my prayers and through my healing and nourishment, but also just the energy of that coming into our home, and the energy of a woman and a mother who is choosing to nourish herself so that she could nourish her child more fully. It's been such a transformational experience to witness within myself, and then to see how it affects my son.
It's that homecoming that really is the medicine, and for them to know that it's okay for there to be separation, and that you come home. And then also it's brought up a big conversation for me, as I mentioned, in my near-death experience coming into motherhood, with always telling my children that even if I'm not there and if they can't see me, that I'm still connected with them through that golden thread of the heart, and really establishing that connection. And also from, the moment they were born, helping to support the connection that they have with Pachamama and with also the other beautiful elements of nature as being family and kin, so that they never feel alone. And I feel like there's a gift in that your son, as you said, when he gets to reunite and he gets his sacred mama's milk and has that with you, what a gift that you, I'm sure, are doing the same and teaching him that he can't ever really be separate from you. There isn't any separation. And so I do believe that that's also one of the gifts of, as mothers, us being able to travel and follow our soul's dharma. And dharma is a word of Sanskrit, which is I know you know, but for our other listeners, it's our soul purpose and what we came here for. And so for us to be able to fulfill our dharma and to hear these stirrings from within that are guiding us, we are also able to teach our children that it's safe and that it's acceptable for them to get to go to their ceremony of life. And then when we get to have the reunions, it's all that much sweeter if we all get to listen to that call from within.
So beautiful, Lindsey. And I think there's so much potency in what you're speaking to with how we introduce separation to our children, because that makes such an imprint on our children's relationship to life. And there's a lot of talk about, creating that secure attachment. But I think that this other part is equally important. How do we create secure spaciousness? How do we allow for the relationship to be so nourished and whole, as well as our children to feel supported by not just the physical mother? That is huge. And when we're, secure attachment is such a big thing that we talk about in our society these days. But I think that there is that missing part of how we help our children to feel that they are connected with all of life and all of nature, and that their mother, their physical mother, is one of those pillars, and their physical father is one of those pillars. But first and foremost come the great mother and the great father. And this gifting this to your child is unfathomable. It's like there's nothing that can replace that. It's like it's the greatest gift that you can give to your children. And then to be able to create that spaciousness, but rather not from a place of creating trauma from leaving, but rather from this place of wholeness, from this place of balance, from this place of us and our sovereignty, our child and us as women and mothers. It's so potent, and there's so much medicine in that for ourselves, for our lineages, for all of humanity. So it's I'm so happy that this is part of the conversation as it's being woven through, because I do feel like there's a lot of power and potency in this theme.
And I'm so thankful that anyone who is listening to this, I think it's their inner child, an opportunity to be nourished, because not all of us were grown up in this way. And as I mentioned, other grandmothers and mothers and fathers and people who have been born into another time, they're not seeing this normalized. And so the more that we're able to help to normalize this, I believe the better for all of our future generations. Because something that I see happening is that a lot of women are able to get lost in motherhood and in a story that their whole identity, and as I mentioned, that word dharma, needs to just get put on a back back burner. It's stuck on a back shelf, and they can focus entirely on their child. And sometimes it takes until that child grows up and is able to be more independent that mothers can, oh, look, what's on that back burner? What did I put on that back shelf? And oftentimes the energy of what that was has completely morphed into something else, and it can feel a bit confusing for them to pick up and to move on. And so I feel like instead of there being a separation and putting everything on that back burner, if we can also just keep it there with our children and with our lives and keep on stirring that pot. You want to keep it juicy so that it doesn't dry out. And so then your children can see that you're tending to your passions and to what really lights your soul up. And when they see that you're doing that, then it helps them to keep their soul purpose illuminated at the forefront rather than putting it behind them for anybody else. And so a big part of what I believe mothers can really step into is more and more self-care. And a big part of self-care, I believe, are boundaries. And it's not only boundaries with the whole world, but with our children as well. Because if we are giving 100% of ourselves to our children and we're not giving to ourselves, then we're teaching our children that they're meant to give all of themselves to their partners, to their families, to their employers, and to other things. And so I also believe that with us getting to keep everything activated and be doing our soul's work while we get to be mamas, we are teaching our children and the rest of our greater community and global family that that is safe. It's okay to do that. And when we celebrate each other for it, rather than putting the shoulds and the can'ts on there, then we're creating this new way of being for all the generations to come, to get to be who they're here to be and to be celebrated for that.
Aho to that vision and that beautiful prayer that we are weaving. And it really is that tending to the pot and the alchemy of the balance of motherhood. I find it to be a constant balancing act of, tending and making sure that all of the elements of healthy and in balance relationship to self, relationship to community, relationship to family are all there. And I think that that is the study, that is the learning and the evolution, and there's so much medicine there. And I find myself constantly checking in, because whether my son is needing more from me than I'm giving, or my business is needing more from me than I'm giving, it's like life is always showing me and reflecting where there needs to be greater attention given and where I need to come back to the pot and bring that balance and stir things up a little bit and tend, right? So it definitely keeps you on your toes, that's for sure. But one of the things, that I would love for you to speak on is, you have many more years mothering than I do, and you've been through different challenges with your children, and we all have, but ultimately, I would love to hear how you have navigated different challenges with your children, whether it be, behavioral challenges or different needs or health challenges, and how you have placed whatever, challenges that you've been given in your parenting journey on your altar, and how the process of your connection to God, Creator, Spirit has carried you through these different moments of real peak potency, and really when you've been asked to tend to that flame, because I think often, as mothers, it's easy to fall into that place of worry or of doing or of, focusing a lot of attention on the physical expression of whatever's going on with our children. And when we can learn to take whatever comes with in our parenting journey as this beautiful reflection and mirror that we get to bring to the altar and utilize for deeper investigations and reflections, connection with God, the insights can be profound and so supportive to us being able to show up for our children and whatever they're going through. And I just feel really called to hear you speak on this topic.
Yeah, I think one of the most important things, as you've mentioned, is to be able to take the tribulations and the challenges from life and place them on the altar, and to know that they are gifts, as hard as that can be in the moment. One of the experiences that we had with our youngest son, Elijah, who most people, when they hear that we have our two older children and then that we have a 9-year gap and we've got our little one, they're like, oh, he must have been like an oopsie baby. And we're like, no, he's a conscious conception. We really welcomed his soul in. And when he was very young, he and I, we both have the O negative blood. And so we're the universal donors. And it said that we need to have a lot more B12 in our systems. And I was getting B12 from having, chlorella and spirulina and B12 injections and under my tongue. So I was fine, but the B12 wasn't absorbing through to our youngest child's breast milk all the way. He wasn't getting it. And he got quite weak once I had finished eating his placenta. And we needed to go and get a blood transfusion over in Singapore. And I had to start giving him bone broth and mashing egg yolk in with my breast milk. And I had been vegetarian for 20 years and very limited on any animal products. So that was really big for me. And again, really taking upon nature as medicine and having a big healing and overcoming some of my own judgments with working with the animals in this way. And so that was a big journey for us, because we were told not to bring Elijah from Bali to Singapore, that it wouldn't be safe. And we had to do that anyway and get that blood transfusion for him. And I remember holding him in the air of that flight and really feeling his soul needing to make a decision if he wanted to fully be here in this life. And he chose yes. And I felt his soul come into his body so fully. And with Elijah, we had an orgasmic birth with him in Bali, and he still, though, felt very connected to the spirit realm. And so I felt like it took till he was about 6 months till he really came in. And so that experience was massive for us, to have to really trust in life and presence. And as you said, just put it all on the altar and trust Great Spirit and his path. And as parents, we felt that that fear of losing a child. That was our first journey. And then just less than a year later, our son Jasper was diagnosed with leukemia. We also had to go to Singapore, and we had a big journey where we had 3 days to give away everything and to leave our home and community of Bali and to come back to California so that he could be at the Stanford Hospital. And we were so thankful that we had this global community and family, and everybody's prayers were so potent for us. So as we literally gave away everything and, had our sacred altar of our family and our life that we put before God, and we were shown that our son was going to make it through, that everything was going to be okay. We had to really just trust in the process that we were having. And our son, he cleared out the leukemia to the millionth of a cell in just 1 month's time. And a big part of that, I believe, was our global family and all the prayers. And I mentioned also that you don't want people to be sending that worried energy. And I was really clear in the beginning. I said, just hold the vision of our son healthy and healed and vibrant. And you don't need to send any worries or fears to us, because we really trust in this process and that everything's going to be okay. And so I believe that that's a way, that's, you mentioned, with children's health and with times that you might feel like you are completely defeated as a mother or that you're helpless. The truth is the more we can surrender, then we are shown that there's a greater path and a purpose for our children and for our family. So, as a mama, I went into this rabbit hole with my son's healing journeys and thinking what could I have done to prevent this? And I've done so much for them already. What should I have done? And so again, it's that shoulding, or that rabbit hole of anything else other than that mountain, that pillar of strength that we are. And so I feel like when we get into health journeys with our children, to know that everything is already laid out. Their soul's journey is already there before us. And so if you're snuggling your child and they have a fever, or if your milk doesn't come in straight away, or any of these big things that come up where you will naturally have a lot of worries or fears come up, if you can surrender them to the altar of life, and trust that even if a physical altar gets pulled out, if the rug gets pulled out from beneath you, really, we are the altar. We are the medicine. And so to trust that whatever your child needs to experience in their birth, not all mamas have the perfect birth for their children, and they worry about the birth story affecting or there could be trauma from other timelines and ancestors that we worry is getting in. And if we can just really stay present with the knowing that everything is taken care of and that it's all for our growth and who we and our children are here to be, then we become the living altar, so that we can place all of our worries there at, as you said, the great mother, the great father, all of the universe, all of creation to help to support us. And I believe that that really is the medicine that can get us through some of the hardest times of mothering, when we feel like we didn't do good enough or that we are small, to remember the mountainous beings of our souls and of our children and of the global community that we have. If we see everyone as the living altar, then we can begin to bow and receive each other's medicines and gifts. And that's what I believe can get us through some of the darkest times, the dark nights of the soul that are inevitable as parents, that we will go through with our children. There's so much beauty in it. And there's always a dawn that will come and bring the biggest aha moments through these initiations. And if we try to protect our children from these initiations, we're holding them back to their full purpose, their full experience of this precious human life. So that's a big part of it, is surrendering as much as we can and allowing these gifts to come through.
Thank you so much for sharing all of that. So much vulnerability and such an open heart. So many jewels there in that last share, Lindsey, and really just receiving all of that is so very potent. And thank you so much for opening your heart to us in this conversation. I feel that there's a lot to be taken in and digested and applied. So thank you. I really appreciate the element of navigating the health challenges. And I think that, from what you've shared, you have really had the opportunity to cultivate those skills and, um, get these beautiful opportunities to dive to the depths of your relationship with God and trust and faith. And the way that you speak about it really, says it for itself, just how much that you really dove to the depths and chose it and embraced it with totality. And I'm just so grateful to hear that your children are thriving. And I've met your children once, and I've just gotten to witness your children through you over the last few years. And they really do seem like such happy and well-adjusted children that are thriving and nourished and secure within themselves and confident. And so I really applaud you and Josh for the incredible container that you have held as a family, because that is a true gift to be celebrated and revered in today's world, and to be honored. And that being said, I think I just want to hear you also touch on behavioral challenges too, because that last share was so potent. I feel really inspired to hear you maybe explain a little bit more about how to navigate the behavioral expressions when our children are not well and they're not they're not feeling safe, they're not feeling healthy, and we are observing it, whether it be through behavioral issues or observing that our children are not thriving in the emotional or in the spiritual. And I'm curious if that has been part of your journey with any of your children, and anything that you feel called to share on that theme, because I think equally to the health, it's also this feeling of powerlessness. Of course, there's a lot of weavings between the health and the physical health and the emotional and spiritual health. But again, like how we can navigate that, and really, parenting, when parenting becomes a spiritual experience, right? Like, how do we navigate the spiritual experience of parenthood, and show up in all of the many facets that it and expressions that it takes?
Well, one of the biggest teachings for me through that health journey was that really my children are my greatest teachers, in the sense that, our son Jasper was such an incredible patient. He had this level of patience that came through him, but also I saw him coming into, being a teenager and going through this journey, and in his transformation. I actually was so thankful that we had that healing journey when we did, because I think if he had been younger, it would have been even more challenging. And if he had been a bit older, it could have even been more challenging. It was right in between, but I felt like it was a really like a poignant rite of passage for him to have that experience. And one of the things that I see as you're speaking to is the behavioral challenges being, coming into being a teenager, and when their hormones are all changing, and when they're really, seeking solace in themselves, and when it's harder for them to drop into themselves. I'm seeing that one of the most important things that we can do is to radiate our love for our children and let them know that we're right here for them, and what they need, but also, again, to let them have the spaciousness to go through the process and the journey in their own unique way. So being a mama of 3, I'm seeing how different children are, and that some need more physical touch and snuggles, and sometimes they don't want that. And that's, I think, one of the harder parts as the mama, as your children are getting older, is allowing them to have the space they need for their own process. And it reminds me of being in ceremony And if someone's having a really challenging experience, and if someone does go to them, sometimes it can stop a process from happening where there's really beautiful growth and teachings. And so I believe as parents, that's something that is a fine line of when we go in and offer our advice or our support or our help for our children, and when we allow them to also move through what they are experiencing. And my husband, he was the counselor of the Green School. So Josh got to witness a lot of families, and then also our children go through some of the different phases that they would have. And that was always really important for us, is that our children knew that we were right there for them, and that they had the room and the space to grow and to move through whatever that phase may be. And I am seeing such a big difference in our youngest son, who is 6, and then our daughter Mirabel's, who is 17, getting to witness so much of the evolution of their soul. And so much like what I said with the healing and the health journey, is to know that whatever our children are navigating on their emotional and mental forefronts of growing and, going through their own initiation processes, to really have faith that they're going to move through, and then to also stay focused on all of the healthy aspects of their consciousness and being as well, so that we don't worry too much about the little things. And that's a mantra that I know many of us have heard, like, don't sweat the small stuff. And if we get too focused, then we will sweat the small stuff. And it's really so important to allow our children to be who they are and to go through these processes, and to know that it's natural and that there's not anything wrong with them or with us as parents as they navigate that.
Mm-hmm. I love that, and really just holding that vision for our child in their fullest expression, and to focus on all of the beautiful things that we love and celebrate about our child. To me, that has been such an incredible teacher and experience, because, our children are our greatest teachers. They know how to get under our skin or to trigger us, and it's hard for us to see them struggling. And, the role of the mother, the role of the parent, is really to hold that space and hold that prayer and hold that container. But it is so easy to want to get into that place of, it could either be nitpicking, where we're focusing on the things that are driving us crazy. And by doing that, we're actually just giving more energy to those patterns or those challenges. Or it could be, worrying, like you said, and going down that rabbit hole. So really, like, what an incredible gift to hold that vision for our children in their optimum wellness and thriving and wholeness, and just to have that faith. I think, like, one of the most potent experiences for me, and I love that you likened it to caring for someone in a ceremony, because, like, for a new parent, some of those first tantrums as your child enters toddlerhood can, they can really test you. And when you reach that point where you realize that there's nothing you can do for your child in that moment except radiate love and hold faith that they're going to get through the other side, it, for me, has been transformational. That experience of witnessing, of loving, of not judging. And, for someone who's done it for many years for other people in ceremony, to be presented with the ceremony of my life at 3 a.m. in the morning and have to do it for my child, it was like a whole new doorway and a whole new expression of this beautiful life lesson. And so there's just so much medicine to be received from it, and from this journey of parenthood, of motherhood. And the more that I open myself to receive the gifts that my child has to teach me, that motherhood has to teach me, in all of its beauty and all of its challenges, it's like so sweet, and just becomes more and more potent. The layers of of the journey just unfold in the most profound way. And so hearing you talk about the many years you've been walking this path just gets me more excited for everything that's to come, and just the continued learnings that we get to have with these beautiful light beings and these special souls that chose us to accompany them and to walk with them. I always just feel so honored when I reflect on this pact that I made with my child and what it means to get to create family and to be that person's family for the rest of my life. It humbles me to the core, and I think that that's what you were talking about at the beginning of like your family being your pillar, their family being your foundation, and it's such a beautiful thing when we can come into that honoring and celebration of our family, and not to say that things aren't challenging and that we don't have moments of real struggle or triumph, that we have to overcome, but to navigate it from that place of true reverence for this magical gift of what it means to be intertwined with another soul and to get to weave and paint the family tree together. It's like so magnificent to witness the next generation of our bloodlines being written in front of our eyes. It's just so magical. So I'm really feeling really full from this conversation, this topic that we've gotten the chance to tap into today, and really just feeling in awe of your magic and your medicine and all that you are and the way that you show up for your family and for your community. And so really just thank you, Lindsey, so much for this space and for taking the time to be with us. I have one more question for you as we kind of near the close, and I think that this is a really nice question to kind of tie it all together, because we've been talking a lot about the family, the immediate family, and the way that we mother, the way that we nurture. As you mentioned at one point, even if you're not a mother of a physical child, this element of the nurturer is an archetype as part of womanhood. And so you have nurtured and cared for your family, but you also are a nurturer and a tender of your community. You give so much to your communities, and you really do serve so tremendously in so many beautiful ways. And I would love to end this conversation today with discussing and sharing a little bit about the importance of community and how to tend to our communities, and what it means to take this nurturing quality and then extend it out into our immediate communities and our circles, as well as the global community, and how we meet all of humanity and how we show up in the world, whether it be the person who's checking out our groceries at the grocery store, or the person who we meet shortly at the gas station, or our grandmother who we get to midwife in her last moments, and we get to show up for her and be present and witness her in those last moments of transition. So like really what it means to be in relationship, right? Beyond just the family, but let's bring it out a little bit wider for this final question, and have you speak a little bit on this tending and nurturing quality.
Well, I feel like it weaves in a bit also with that, the last question that you had about like our children's behavior and the ways that they can act out. And when you mentioned also painting that family tree and that we're getting to create that with our children, I think of our greater community. And so with our children, if they are acting out, what can happen very easily, and what we do a lot in shamanic healing is help with soul retrieval and bringing parts of ourself back in. So we can see if our children are starting to feel like not worthy or not good enough. And if we worry too much about the small things, I believe that parts of themselves that don't feel worthy can become feeling a bit exiled and need to be brought back in. And so with weaving that family tree and that we're creating with our children and helping them to feel safe enough that even though there are going to be challenges and experiences that don't go exactly as they wish or that feel really hard, we still want to bring everything in, all parts of ourselves and of our children to feel safe. And I really see that in the community and with that global family. And when we're with people who might not feel good enough or worthy enough, or parts of themselves have, in a way, the branches have almost like kind of split off. And our job is to help to bring and weave that all back together so that we can see this family tree and this creation that we have that goes so far beyond just us and our little families, but it ripples out. And so I've always loved offering volunteer work and finding ways to have community service, to be giving back. You know, whenever I move to a new place, I'm like, okay, what am I doing? How am I volunteering and giving and sharing? And I feel like this is a really beautiful practice if we are ever calling in more abundance, or if we're ever feeling a bit lost and out of sync. One of the first questions that I'll have for myself and then for others is, how are you giving back to the community so that you can feel the Aini, which is that Quechua word of both giving and receiving, that sacred reciprocity. And so one of the ways that I love giving is also creating experiences of song, of dance, of prayer, and, you know, creating circles and ceremonial ways of being. I absolutely love to do that. And yet, like you're saying, if you're going to the supermarket, or if you're, you know, doing some of the daily things in your life, how can we be weaving the community? And I think that my greatest answer is that by being in community and having that essence of song and dance and prayer and being a living altar, then other people are seeing that and they're curious. They want to also create that for themselves. And so I think that a big part of what the world is really calling out for are ways that we can feel connected to others and have a sense of family. Because let's face it, not all of us have had healthy upbringings and families and feel as connected to that family tree. And so that's a big part of it, is just creating more opportunities to come together and to shine light. I think my children are a little bit embarrassed of me because I create conversations like wherever I go, or I love to compliment people and, you know, share something that, like, you know, oh, their smile or their twinkling eyes or things about them. And it always starts conversation. And now as my teenagers are getting older, they're a little bit embarrassed that, but I believe that that is medicine that we all have. And so seeing, you know, the person that's helping us to pump our gas, or to see the person that is helping us in the grocery store, and to see our people in our greater community as our brothers and sisters that are all part of this beautiful tree that we're creating together, is really the medicine. So yeah, anytime I'm feeling a bit isolated or separated, I get to go out and be with community and remember that we're all a part of these sacred roots and branches and this connection with all life.
So beautiful. I love it. That was an amazing place to close this conversation. What a potent message to leave all of our listeners with. So thank you, Lindsey, and so beautiful. Mhm. Mm. Where can our listeners learn more about you and your offerings and connect with you? Please share a little bit more about opportunities to connect more.
Sure. Well, I am so honored to be able to share some things in different parts of the world this next year. You can find me in Bali, in Peru, and then also in Egypt. I've got a beautiful voice activation immersion that is coming along, and I'm part of a sound healing conference that will be in Egypt with the Shift Network in September. So stay tuned for more of that. And something that I mentioned as well is getting the community together is so strong in my heart and prayer for all beings to feel like they have a connection. And we've been offering, we as my husband and I are offering some online integration circles, and we're doing that every month. And you can find a link at my events page to that. And this is just a free offering where we share some song, some prayer, and we also allow space for breakout rooms and people to get to share and communicate with each other. And that's all through my website, which is shamamawise.com. And you can also find my music. I think is such a beautiful way of connecting. I have an EP that's coming out very soon, an EP with a beloved brother, Mose, and his album or his label, which is Risueño. And some new songs and remixes are coming soon. So you can stay connected through the music as well. And if you come to this area of Nevada City or Grass Valley, tune in because I have in-person offerings and I absolutely love being with the community. And so we're able to stay connected in this way. And one of the other pieces that I will share is just how thankful I am for you and for this beautiful Four Visions market and the way that you're bringing such a sacred way of us to connect to such beautiful medicines that are ethically and sustainably brought for our beautiful brothers and sisters, all of the siblings of this global planet. I'm so thankful for that. I remember when you gifted me with some of your beautiful copal oil that then I got to share with so many hearts, and sharing the medicines of what you're making is such a gift. So I really am celebrating you as a mother and all that you are offering and sharing with our global community and family. I'm just so thankful to get to be here as your friend and as a part of it all. So thank you for this invitation.
Thank you so much, my sister. What a blessing.
From everyone at the Four Visions Market family, we would like to thank you for listening to our podcast. We really hope that you've enjoyed the conversation and gained many new insights on plant medicines, ancestral wisdom, and much more. Please remember to visit our website at www.fourvisionsmarket.com for more resources and information on plant medicine and spiritual tools. And please don't forget to follow us across social media for regular updates on upcoming episodes. We are grateful for your support and look forward to continuing this path with you all. Until next time, take care, stay present, and stay connected.